The National Cathedral loomed in gray stone, its spires piercing the overcast Washington sky. Inside, 5,000 pairs of eyes watched the stage. Gold medallions hung from the necks of generals and senators. Cameras blinked red from every corner. The Heritage Hour Road ceremony, the highest civilian honor the Department of Defense could bestow, had become a circus d'America's. Webb stood at the center of the stage, his dress blues immaculate, for silver stars gleaming on each collar point. His jaw was set. His hands remained clasped behind his back. At 52, the man had led Task Force 141 through the Fall of Mosul. He had negotiated the Cyprus Accords with a pistol on the table. He had taken a round in the shoulder pulling a wounded private from a burning APC in the Euphrates Valley. He stood still. The man at the podium was General Alan Thorne, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Thorne had been America's deputy once, 15 years ago, before the promotions, before the glory, before the envy curdled into ambition. Thorne's face was a mask of practiced solemnity. "We gather today to honor a man of courage," Thorne began, his voice echoing through the cathedral's vaulted ceiling. "A man who has served this nation with distinction. A man we once called our shield." Americus felt the shift. Thorne's eyes flickered, just for a moment. Tawa RD, a cluster of men in civilian suits NEA are the front row. The Justice Department contingent. Americus had seen them enter an hour ago, briefcases chained to their wrists, eyes scanning the pews like predators. However, Thorne continued, and the word hung in the air like a guillotine blade, in the pursuit of truth, we must sometimes confront uncomfortable realities. A murmur rippled through the audience. Senator Deborah Vance, seated in the second row, leaned four-way road. Her lips parut. She knew. They all knew. The deal had been cut weeks ago, in back rooms where Americus had no seat. Thorne pulled a sheet of paper from his jacket pocket. His hand trembled slightly. Americus noticed. The man was afraid. "Good. It has come to the attention of this committee," Thorne read, his voice gaining a brittle edge, "that General Americus Webb, while serving as commander of Central Command, authorized the transfer of classified drone telemetry to civilian contractors without proper oversight. Additionally, there is evidence that Webb directed the destruction of after-action reports pertaining to the Balad airstrike of, an act that potentially compromised ongoing investigations into civilian casualties." The cathedral erupted. Not in applause. In chaos. Reporters scrambled. Senators stood. A woman in the back row screamed something Americus could not make out. He remained perfectly still. His son, Caleb, sat in the third row, directly behind Senator Vance. Caleb's face was white. He had been Americus's aide-de-camp for 2 years. The boy knew every classified file. Every encrypted transmission. Every buried order. Caleb knew the truth, and he had just betrayed his father. Americus's eyes found Caleb's. The boy looked away. Thorne pressed on, the sheet shaking in his grip. "Pending further investigation, the Department of Defense is suspending General Webb's clearance, revoking his access to classified materials, and recommending the withdrawal of his nomination for the Heritage Hour Road." The cathedral was silent now. 5,000 people holding their breath. Americus remained fixed at center stage. The stage lights burned his face. He could feel the sweat trickling down his spine beneath the dress blues. He did not move. Senator Vance rose from her seat. She adjusted her microphone, her heels clicking against the marble aisle. "General Webb," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "do you have anything to say in your defense?" The camera zoomed in on Americus's face. He let the silence stretch. 1 second. 2. 3. He saw Thorne's jaw tighten. He saw Caleb's hands gripping the pew in front of him, knuckles white. Americus stepped four-way road. 1 step. Then another. The microphone on the podium caught his breath. "I have 3 words," Americus said. His voice was low, graveled, calm. Wait for it. He turned and walked off the stage. The doors at the back of the cathedral groaned open. Marcus Webb stepped into the grey afternoon light. Behind him, the chaos swelled like a wave. He did not look back. The black Suburban idled at the curb. The driver, a young Marine sergeant, did not speak. Marcus climbed into the back seat and closed the door. "Take me to the bunker," he said. The engine hummed. The cathedral shrank in the side mirror. Marcus Webb had waited 11 years. He could wait another hour. The bunker was 3 levels underground, buried beneath an UNMA office building in Arlington. The elevators required retinal scans and voiceprint authentication. Marcus had built this facility himself, in the months after the Mosul campaign, when he realized that the men he trusted most would eventually become his enemies. The walls were concrete, poured 4 feet thick. The air filtration system hummed at a frequency that made teeth ache. Sergeant Delgado, his former operations chief, stood at attention beside the vault door. Delgado had been with Marcus since the first Gulf War. His face was SCA red, his left hand missing 2 fingers. He was the only man Marcus still trusted. "Sir," Delgado said, his voice flat. "We have incoming. Justice Department obtained a warrant. They're coming here." Marcus nodded. He pressed his palm against the vault scanner. The steel door groaned open. Inside, the room was smaller than he remembered. A single table. A single chair. A single file folder, bound with red tape. Marcus sat down. He opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Grainy, aerial shots of the Balad airstrike. The after-action reports that Thorne had claimed were destroyed. The original telemetry logs. The encrypted transcripts of every conversation between General Thorne and Senator Vance Riga riding the cover-up. The evidence had been buried so deep that even the CIA's Internal Oversight Committee could not find it. But Marcus had found it. 11 years ago, when he first suspected the betrayal, he had begun to dig. He had sent Delgado to Yemen, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, digging through rubble and burned hard drives. He had paid informants with his own money. He had risked everything. And he had won. Delgado stepped into the vault behind him. "Sir, we have 90 minutes. The justice team is already at the building in trance." 90 minutes is plenty, Marcus said. That he pulled out his secure satellite phone. The screen glowed green. He dialed a number from memory. A voice answered on the second ring. "Webb." "Senator," Marcus said. "I have the transcripts from the Balad briefing. The ones you and Thorne thought you burned." The line went silent. Marcus could hear Vance breathing. She was a heavy smoker. The habit would kill her before the scandal did. Marcus, she said finally, her voice thin. "You are making a mistake." "I made mistakes," Marcus said. "I trusted you. I trusted Thorne. I trusted my own son." He ended the call. Delgado stood in the doorway. His good hand rested on the side arm at his hip. "Orders, sir." Marcus rose from the chair. He picked up the folder. The red tape felt warm in his hands. He had ride this evidence through 7 countries, 3 wars, and a dozen betrayals. Now he would ry it into the cathedral. "Get me a car, Marcus said. "And get me a microphone." Delgado moved without hesitation. He pulled out his own phone and issued a series of clipped commands. Within 30 seconds, the distant rumble of an engine echoed through the concrete walls. The Suburban was coming back. Marcus walked to the vault's rear wall. He pressed a hidden panel. A compartment slid open, revealing a second folder, identical to the first. He placed the red-taped folder inside and sealed the compartment. "Back up," he said. "In case they find the first one." Delgado nodded. "Sir, the justice team has breached the building. They are in the lobby. 2 minutes." Americus straightened his dress blues. He had removed the jacket in the vault, and now he put it back on, adjusting the collar with precise, deliberate motions. The 4 stars caught the fluorescent light that he walked out of the vault. Delgado followed. They took the elevator up. The doors opened onto a narrow corridor lined with emergency exit signs. Delgado led the way through a maintenance door, down a flight of stairs, and out into an alley. The Suburban was waiting. The Marine sergeant saluted. Change of plans, Americus said. We are going back to the cathedral. The sergeant did not question. He opened the REAR door. Americus climbed in. Delgado took the front passenger seat. The vehicle lurched forward, tires squealing against wet asphalt. Americus looked at his watch. 53 minutes had passed since he left the stage. The ceremony would be over. The journalists would be filing their stories. Thorne would be celebrating. But the cathedral was not empty. As the Suburban rounded the corner onto Wisconsin Avenue, Americus saw the crowd. They had not dispersed. They had grown. Thousands of people now milled outside the cathedral gates, their faces lit by phone screens, their voices a low roar of confusion and anger. Someone had leaked the story. Not the evidence, not the files, but the accusation. Thorne had moved fast. The narrative was already set. Americus Webb, disgraced general, caught destroying evidence, on the run from justice. The Suburban slowed. The crowd pressed against the barricades. A woman screamed something about traitors. A man threw a bottle. It shattered against the hood. Keep going, Americus said. The sergeant floored the accelerator. The Suburban plowed through the crowd, parooting it like a wave. People scattered. The cathedral gates loomed ahead. Americus looked through the window at the faces. He saw anger. He saw confusion. He saw a few faces that were not angry at all. They were watching him with something else. Recognition. Hope that he did not acknowledge them. He could not afford to. The Suburban screeched to a halt at the cathedral steps. The press corps had grown from 50 to 300. Cameras flashed like lightning. Police barricades held back the crowd. Americus stepped out of the vehicle. He did not adjust his tie. He did not smooth his jacket. He walked through the chaos, his dress blues cutting a path through the chaos. Inside, the cathedral had transformed. The pews were half empty. Senators had retreated to side rooms. Generals huddled in corners. Thorne stood at the podium still, but his face was no longer solemn. It was ashen. He had been on the phone. He knew. Caleb was still in the third row. His face was wet. He had been crying. Americus walked past him without a glance. He took the stage. He stood beside Thorne. The chairman took a step back. Americus did not acknowledge him. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the folder. The red tape glowed under the stage lights. Ladies and gentlemen, Americus said. His voice filled the cathedral without amplification. The microphone was still live. It had never been turned off. He opened the folder. The photographs spilled across the podium like fallen leaves. He picked one up and held it high. The cathedral's enormous screens caught the image and threw it across every wall. The crater. The school. The burned children. A collective gasp rippled through the 5,000 assembled. Senator Vance was on her feet. Her hand covered her mouth. Thorne's face went from ashen to white. He reached for the photograph. Americus slapped his hand away. On April 14, Americus said, his voice steady, cutting through the rising panic, the United States conducted a precision strike on a suspected ISIS compound in Balad, Iraq. The strike killed 43 civilians. The after-action report, which I personally ordered, was submitted to the Department of Defense and classified top secret. He held up a second photograph. This one showed a document. The signature at the bottom was Thorne's. This report was then altered by General Alan Thorne, acting in consultation with Senator Deborah Vance. They removed all references to civilian casualties. They fabricated the telemetry data. They blamed the strike on a software malfunction. Thorne lunged for the microphone. Americus was faster. He pivoted, caught Thorne by the collar and threw him back way road. The chairman stumbled into a camera operator. The stage descended into chaos. Security guards rushed four-way road. Americus held up his hand. They stopped. Stay back, he said. This is not finished. Thorne scrambled to his feet. His tie was askew. Blood dripped from his lip where he had hit the camera mount. You are insane, he spat. This is a fabrication. You forged those documents. You are trying to destroy this nation. Americus pulled out a third photograph. The encryption key. The transcript. He held it up. The screens flashed again. This transcript details a conversation between Thorne and Vance, held on May 2, in which they agreed to transfer $73 million in defense appropriations to a shell company owned by Thorne's brother-in-law. The money was meant to fund the cover-up. The cathedral was frozen. 5,000 people read at the screens. The transcript was clear. The voices were unmistakable. The timestamp was unalterable. Senator Vance was no longer standing. She had collapsed into her seat. Her security detail surrounded her, but they looked at each other with confusion. Their principal was a criminal. Their orders were void. Americus turned to the cameras. There were dozens of them, all live, all broadcasting to every network in the country. He spoke directly into the NEA rest lens. The American people deserve to know what their government does in their name. They deserve to know who profits from their sacrifice. They deserve to know who burns the truth to save themselves. He turned back to the stage. Thorne was backing away now, his hands raised. The security guards had not moved. They were watching Americus, waiting for direction. Sit down, Americus said. Thorne did not obey. He turned and ran. He dove off the side of the stage, disappearing into the crowd. Reporters swam after him. The chaos was total. Americus let him go. He picked up the folder. He closed it gently. He placed it under his arm. Then he walked to the edge of the stage and descended the steps. The crowd parut before him. He walked through the pews, past the senators, past the generals, past the journalists. Caleb was still in the third row. He had not moved. His face was a ruin of tears and shame. Americus stopped beside him. Stand up, he said. Caleb rose. His legs shook. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were swollen. Your son, Thorne had spat from the floor. Your son helped us. He copied the files. He gave them to us. Americus looked into his son's face. The boy's lips trembled. He told me you were guilty, Dad, Caleb whispered. He said you were going to destroy my career. He said if I did not help, I would go down with you. Americus reached into his jacket. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a sworn affidavit. Signed by Caleb Webb. Dated 1 week ago. General Webb, the affidavit read, has never authorized the destruction of any military report. The allegations against him were fabricated by Alan Thorne and Deborah Vance. I, Caleb Webb, made false statements under duress. The cameras zoomed in. The screens showed the affidavit in high resolution. The signature was undeniable. The date was undeniable. Americus folded the affidavit. He placed it in his breast pocket, over his heart. You are relieved of duty, Americus said. His voice was stone. Effective immediately. Caleb collapsed. 2 MPs had to carry him out, his legs dragging against the marble floor. He did not resist. He did not speak. His eyes were fixed on his father until the doors closed behind him. Americus turned back to the microphone. The stage was empty now. Thorne had fled. Vance was being escorted out by her own security, her face blank, her mouth opening and closing like a fish thrown onto dry land. The Justice Department agents stood in the back, their briefcases open, their faces unreadable. Americus Webb had one final word. Any questions? No one answered. He left the stage. He walked out of the cathedral. The gray sky had broken open, and sunlight spilled across the steps like a benediction. The crowd outside had grown silent. They had watched the screens. They had seen everything. Americus walked down the steps. The Suburban was still there, engine running, door open. Delgado stood beside it, his SCA red face unreadable. Sir, Delgado said. The networks are calling it a coup. They are saying you staged a military takeover of the ceremony. Let them call it what they want, Americus said. The truth is out. He climbed into the back seat. Delgado closed the door. The Suburban pulled away from the cathedral, threading through the silent crowd. People stepped aside. No one threw bottles this time. Americus looked out the window at the faces. He saw TRS. He saw confusion. He saw a few faces that were not confused at all. They were watching him with something else. Gratitude. Awe that he did not acknowledge them. The Suburban turned onto Constitution Avenue. The cathedral shrank in the side mirror. Americus leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. He had waited 11 years for this moment. He had ride the evidence through 7 countries, 3 years, and a dozen betrayals. He had lost his son, his reputation, his career. But he had one. The engine hummed. The city flashed past. Americus Webb did not open his eyes. He had one more move to make, and he had already set it in motion. The HRD drives were uploading. The data was spreading. The reckoning had only just begun. The basement of the cathedral held a war room. Americus had requisitioned it an hour before the ceremony, through channels that no one had thought to sever. Delgado was there. So were 3 retired CIA analysts, men who had worked with Americus in the days before the agency became a political weapon. They had set up monitors. They had tapped into the building's security feed. They had watched Thorne's collapse. They had watched Vance's flight. They had watched Caleb's shame. None of them celebrated. Americus entered the room and closed the door. The air was thick with dust and old electronics. A single fluorescent light flickered overhead. He removed his dress blue jacket and folded it carefully over the back of a folding chair. Beneath it, he wore a black tactical shirt, the kind he had worn in Mosul. The SCARS on his forearms were visible. He sat down and pulled a tablet from the table. The screen glowed with data streams. What is next? Delgado asked. Americus looked up. His eyes were flat, calculating. Thorne is going to lawyer up. He will claim the evidence is forged. He will say I am a disgruntled officer seeking revenge. The media will give him airtime. The public will be divided. The analysts nodded. They had run the Sheena Rios. They knew the playbook. I need the original HRD drives, Americus said. The ones from the ballot strike. The ones we recovered from the wreckage in 2019. One of the analysts, a woman named Chen, opened a laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Road. We have them, sir. Encrypted. 3 layers. The key is in your biometrics. Americus pressed his thumb against the laptop scanner. The screen flickered. The files unfolded like petals, rows of data cascading down the display. He scrolled through the timestamps, the coordinates, the radio chatter. Every piece of the puzzle was there. Every lie had a counterpoint. Every omission had a record. Every frame, he said. Every satellite image. Every radio transmission. I want it all posted. Public. No paywall. No EMBA rego. The American people deserve to see what their government paid for. Delgado stepped four-way road. His SCA red face was tight. Sir, if we release that, we are re-exposing classified surveillance capabilities. The intelligence community will come after you for treason. They will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will bury you in a black site and lose the key. Americus looked at him. His eyes were cold, but not cruel. They already came after me. They already took my name. They already turned my own son against me. What else do I have to lose? Delgado held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. He turned to the analysts. Do it. Full release. Unredacted. Chen began typing. The other two analysts joined her. The monitors filled with progress bars, data streaming into the encrypted upload channels. The files were massive. The transfer would take 47 minutes. Americus leaned back in his chair. He closed his eyes. He had not slept in 36 hours. The adrenaline had kept him upright, kept him moving, kept him sharp. But now, in the relative quiet of the war room, the exhaustion crept in. He felt it in his bones, a deep ache that no amount of training could suppress. He forced his eyes open. What about Vance, the second analyst, a man named Park, pulled up a SEPE rate feed. She ran. She did not go to the media. She went to a private hangar at Dulles. A Gulfstream was fueled and ready. She had a fixer on speed dial. She had Swiss visas pre-approved. Americus sat up. She is leaving the country. That was the plan, Park said. But we tapped her phone. We recorded every call. Her pilot was arrested by federal marshals on an outstanding warrant for tax evasion. The marshals were tipped off by an anonymous call from a burner phone. Americus looked at Delgado. Delgado's expression did not change. My sister made the call, Delgado said. She owed me a favor. Americus allowed himself a single, brief nod. Good. Where is she now? The RK zoomed in on the feed. The screen showed a holding room at Dulles. Vance was seated on a metal bench, her face a mask of Relay contained fury. Two marshals stood guard at the door. She was not handcuffed. She was not under formal arrest. But she was not leaving. That she is stuck, Park said. She cannot leave the country. She cannot speak to her lawyers without the marshals listening. She is trapped in a legal limbo until the Justice Department decides what to charge her with. Americus studied the feed. Vance was pacing now, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. She had stopped screaming. She had stopped threatening. She was thinking. That was dangerous. She will find a way out, Americus said. She has connections. She has money. She has people who owe her favors. She will try to spin this as a political hit job. Chen looked up from her laptop. Sir, the data is 42% uploaded. The first tranche has already been picked up by Reuters. They are rerunning it on their breaking news feed. Americus turned to the main monitor. The headlines were already scrolling. General Webb exposes Pentagon cover-up. Ballot strike documents leaked. Senator Vance implicated in fraud scheme. The public reaction was still forming, still unformed, still a question mark. But the first domino had fallen. He stood up. He picked up his dress jacket and put it back on. The fabric was rm from the chair. The 4 stars gleamed under the fluorescent light. That I am going upstairs, he said. I need to see the faces when they realize what I have done. Delgado reached for his side arm. I am coming with you. No, Americus said. Stay here. Oversee the upload. Make sure nothing interrupts it. If they try to cut the power, you have the backup generator. If they try to jam the signal, you have the satellite relay. Do not let them stop this. Delgado hesitated. Then he holstered his weapon. Yes, sir. Americus walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the frame. Delgado. Sir. Thank you. For everything. Delgado did not respond. He simply stood at attention, his SCA red face unreadable, his good hand resting at his side. Americus stepped out of the war room. He climbed the stairs. The basement door opened onto the cathedral's REAR vestibule. The sounds of chaos filtered in from the nave. Shouting. Crying. The heavy footsteps of security personnel. He walked through the vestibule and pushed open the main doors. The cathedral was in ruins. The pews were empty. The stage was deserted. The screens were still showing the photographs, frozen frames of rubble and burned children. The echoes of his voice had faded, but the images remained. Americus walked to the center of the nave. He stood alone beneath the vaulted ceiling. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass, casting colored patterns across the marble floor. He looked up at the cross above the altar. He had never been a religious man. But in that moment, he felt something close to peace. Then the doors at the back of the cathedral burst open. A swarm of black suits flooded in. The Justice Department had arrived. The black suits flooded the nave. 12 agents, all young, all Shah-RP-faced, all wearing the same expression of forced neutrality. They fanned out, covering the exits, their hands hovering near their holsters. The lead agent was a man in his EARLY 40s with a crew cut and a jaw that looked like it had been revered from granite. He walked straight toward Americus, his steps echoing against the marble. General Webb, the agent said. His voice was flat, professional. I am Special Agent Reyes, Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are under arrest for violation of the Espionage Act. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Americus did not move. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his dress blues immaculate, his 4 stars catching the colored light from the stained glass. He looked at Reyes and saw a man doing a job. No malice. No personal vendetta. Just a man following orders. I understand, Americus said. Reyes reached for his cuffs. Please extend your wrists, sir. Americus extended his wrists. The cuffs clicked into place. The metal was cold against his skin. He had been handcuffed before, in training exercises, in captivity simulations, in the EARLY days of his CA rear when the military still tested its officers for resilience under duress. This was different. This was real. Walk with me, Reyes said. Americus walked. The other agents formed a perimeter around him, their eyes scanning the empty pews, the high windows, the shadowed alcoves. They moved as a unit, disciplined and silent. Americus noted their formations, their spacing, their field of vision. He had trained men like these. He had led men like these. Now they were leading him. They reached the cathedral's main doors. The sunlight was blinding after the dim interior. Americus squinted and saw the crowd. It had not dispersed. It had grown. Thousands of people now lined the streets, held back by police barricades. They were watching. They were filming. They were shouting that a woman screamed something about justice. A man held up a sign that read, Webb for President. Another sign read, Traitor. The crowd was divided, confused, electrified. Reyes guided Americus toward a black SUV. The vehicle was Americad, its windows tinted. The doors opened automatically. Americus ducked his head and climbed into the back seat. Reyes climbed in beside him. 2 other agents took the front seats. The engine sta route. The SUV pulled away. Marcus looked out the window as the cathedral shrank behind him. The crowd surged against the barricades. The signs waved. The cameras flashed. He turned his head and faced four-way road. Reyes was watching him. "You are not going to ask where we are taking you?" "No," Marcus said. "You are taking me to the Hoover building. The interrogation rooms are on the 5th floor. They have not been renovated since the 90s. The coffee is terrible." Reyes blinked. His composure flickered for just a moment. "You know the building. I helped design its security protocols after the '08 breach," Marcus said. "I know every room. Every camera. Every blind spot. I know the interrogation rooms because I sat in them myself, debriefing prisoners of war. The acoustics are poor. The lighting is hot. The chairs are uncomfortable. But the microphones work. They always work." Reyes said nothing. He turned his head and read out the window. The drive took 23 minutes. Marcus counted them. The SUV passed through the security checkpoint at the Hoover Building's garage. The agents in the front seat showed their badges. The barrier lifted. The vehicle descended into the underground parking structure. They led him out of the SUV and into a freight elevator. The elevator rose to the 5th floor. The doors opened onto a narrow corridor lined with beige walls and fluorescent lights. The interrogation rooms were exactly as Marcus remembered them. Small. Windowless. Stale. Reyes opened the door to room 5B. "Sit." Marcus sat. The chair was uncomfortable. The table was bolted to the floor. The two-way mirror on the FAR wall reflected his own face back at him. He saw a man who had not slept, who had not eaten, who had just destroyed his own career and his own son in the span of 90 minutes. He saw a man who was not finished. Reyes sat across from him. He placed a folder on the table. "General Webb, you are facing charges that carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. The evidence against you is substantial. The intelligence community is demanding your prosecution. The White House is not returning my calls. You are alone." Marcus leaned back in his chair. The metal frame creaked. "I am not alone." Reyes opened the folder. Inside were printouts of the uploaded files. The satellite images. The transcripts. The telemetry logs. You released classified material. You compromised national security. You have given our adversaries a complete map of our drone capabilities. Do you understand what you have done? "Yes," Marcus said. "I have shown the American people the truth." Reyes slammed the folder shut. "The truth does not matter. The law matters. You broke the law. You will be prosecuted. You will be convicted. You will spend the rest of your life in a federal prison." "Is that what you wanted?" Marcus looked at him. His eyes were flat, steady, unblinking. "I wanted Thorne and Vance to face justice. I wanted my son to face his own conscience. I wanted the families of Ballad to know that their children were not forgotten. I have achieved all of those things. The rest is noise." Reyes stood up. He paced to the mirror and read at his own reflection. "You are not a martyr, General. You are a fugitive. You are a criminal. You are." The door burst open. Another agent stood in the doorway, his face pale, his phone pressed to his ear. "Reyes. The director. He wants to speak with you. Now." Reyes took the phone. He listened. His expression changed. The granite jaw loosened. The flat eyes widened. He said nothing. He just listened. When he hung up, he turned to Marcus. The room was silent. The Attorney General has issued a directive, Reyes said. His voice was hollow. All charges against you are being dropped. The White House has issued a statement. They are relaunching a full investigation into Thorne and Vance. They are recalling the ballot strike a systemic failure of oversight. They are blaming Thorne for the cover-up and Vance for the corruption. Americus did not react. He simply sat in the uncomfortable chair, his hands cuffed, his dress blues wrinkled, his 4 stars still gleaming. Reyes walked to the table. He pulled out a key and unlocked the cuffs. They fell away with a metallic clatter. You are free to go, Reyes said. Americus stood up. He rubbed his wrists. The skin was red where the cuffs had been. He walked to the door. He paused at the threshold. Tell the director, Americus said, that the second tranche of data will be released in 30 minutes. It contains Thorne's personal financial records. And Vance's offshore accounts. They have a choice. They can investigate themselves. Or I can do it for them. He walked out of the room. The corridor was empty. The agents had vanished. The fluorescent lights hummed. Americus walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors opened. He stepped inside. As the elevator descended, he reached into his jacket. His secure satellite phone was still there. He pulled it out and dialed Delgado's number. Sir, Delgado answered. We have eyes on Thorne. He is trying to leave the country through a private airfield in Virginia. The FBI is already there. They have been tipped off. Americus smiled. It was a thin, cold smile that did not reach his eyes. Good, he said. The elevator doors opened. Americus Webb stepped out of the Hoover building and into the gray Washington afternoon. The sun was gone. The clouds were low. The rain was coming. He did not see the rain sta route as Americus walked away from the Hoover building. Fat, cold drops splattered against the pavement, rakining the concrete in irregular patches. He did not quicken his pace. He walked with the same measured stride he had used on the cathedral stage, the same deliberate tempo that had ride him through 3 wars and a dozen betrayals. The rain soaked his dress blues, plastered the fabric to his shoulders, dripped from the brim of his collar. He did not notice. The streets were quiet. The crowds had dispersed. The media vans were gone. Washington had moved on to the next story, the next scandal, the next outrage. Americus walked alone, his hands in his pockets, his head his 4 stars hidden beneath the wet fabric of his jacket. He walked for 40 minutes. He did not know where he was going. He had no destination, no plan, no next move. For the first time in 11 years, he had nothing to prepare for, nothing to execute, nothing to survive. The emptiness was unfamiliar. It was almost peaceful. He found himself at the Lincoln Memorial. The steps were slick with rain. The columns loomed above him, gray and ancient in the failing light. He climbed the steps and walked into the memorial. The statue of Lincoln sat in its chair, massive and impassive, its marbly face frozen in contemplation. Americus stood before it and looked up. He had been here before. Many times. As a young lieutenant, fresh out of West Point, he had come here to think. As a major, grieving the loss of his first platoon in Somalia, he had come here to mourn. As a general, preparing for the Mosul campaign, he had come here to find resolve. The memorial had always been his anchor, his compass, his judge. Now he stood before it again. His uniform was wet. His body was exhausted. His soul was hollowed up. Sir. The voice came from behind him. Americus did not turn. He recognized the cadence, the weight, the quiet authority. It was Delgado. You found me, Americus said. You are not hard to find, Delgado said. You always come here. After everything. After every battle. After every loss. You always come to the memorial. Americus turned. Delgado stood at the entrance, his SCA red face partially hidden in shadow. He was holding a duffel bag. He walked four-way RD and set it at Ricus's feet. Clean clothes, Delgado said. A phone. A weapon. Cash. Enough to get you out of the country if you need to. Ricus looked at the bag. He did not pick it up. I am not leaving. I know, Delgado said. But I had to offer. It is what you would have done for me. Ricus nodded. He looked back at the statue. What is happening out there? Delgado stepped beside him. He folded his ARMS and STA read up at Lincoln's face. Thorne is in custody. The FBI picked him up at the airfield. He was trying to BOA RD a plane to Dubai. They found 3 passports in his bag. Different names. Different nationalities. He was going to disappear. He will not disappear now, Ricus said. No, Delgado agreed. He will not. The Justice Department is already building a case. The evidence you released is being used against him. They are talking about life without parole. No deals. No immunity. He is done. And Vance, Delgado's jaw tightened. She is still in the holding room at Dulles. She has not been charged yet. She is lawyering up. Her firm is one of the best. They are going to fight. They are going to drag this out for YRS. They are going to blame you. They are going to blame the media. They are going to blame everyone except her. Ricus turned to face Delgado. His eyes were harrowed. She will not get away with it. She might, Delgado said. That is how the system works. You know that. You have seen it before. The rich buy their way out. The powerful buy their way out. She has both. Ricus reached into his pocket. He pulled out his satellite phone. He dialed a number from memory. Delgado watched, his expression unreadable. A voice answered. This is Chen. Chen, Ricus said. Release the second tranche. Now. There was a pause. Sir, the second tranche contains her personal financial records. Her offshore accounts. Her shell companies. Her payments to Thorne. If we release that, she will not have a defense. She will not have a lawyer. She will not have a single ally left in Washington. I know, Ricus said. Release it. Chen did not hesitate. Yes, sir. The line went dead. Ricus pocketed the phone. He looked at Delgado. She will not get away with it. I have made sure of that. Delgado studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. You have made a lot of enemies today, sir. More than you realize. The intelligence community will not forgive you. The Pentagon will not forgive you. The White House will not forgive you. You have exposed their secrets. You have made them look weak. They will come for you. Let them, Ricus said. I have been running from them for 11 years. I am tired of running. Delgado picked up the duffel bag and handed it to Ricus. Then take the bag. Not to run. To survive. You are going to need it. Ricus took the bag. It was heavier than he expected. He slung it over his shoulder. What about you? He asked. Delgado smiled. It was a RA expression, and it made his SCA red face look almost human. I am going back to the bunker. There is still work to do. The data is not all uploaded. The third tranche contains the recordings of Thorne's conversations with the defense contractors. The ones where he traded classified information for stock tips. That will bury him. That will bury all of them. Ricus extended his hand. Delgado took it. They held the grip for a moment, 2 old soldiers who had seen too much, done too much, lost too much. Thank you, Ricus said. Delgado released his hand. He turned and walked toward the exit. He paused at the threshold and looked back. I will see you soon, sir. Do not disappear. The world needs to see what happens next. Americus watched him go. The rain was falling hard now, sheets of water cascading down the memorial's columns. The sky was dark. The traffic on the mall was sparse. The city was quiet. Americus turned back to the statue. Lincoln's marbly face was impassive, unmoved by the storm, untouched by the chaos. Americus read at it for a long time. Then he walked to the edge of the memorial and sat down on the wet steps. He set the duffel bag beside him. He looked out at the rain-swept city and waited. The phone in his pocket buzzed. He pulled it out. A text message from an unknown number. Third tranche uploaded. Thorne is finished. Vance is finished. The Pentagon is in chaos. You have won. Americus read the message. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply pocketed the phone and turned his face to the rain. He had won. But the war was not over. The enemies were still out there. The consequences were still coming. The reckoning was still unfolding. He sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and watched the storm roll across Washington. He did not move. He did not speak. He just waited. The rain fell. The city churned. And Americus Webb sat alone, victorious and hollow, ring into the gray abyss of what came next. The rain stopped at dawn. Americus had not moved from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. His dress blues had dried in patches, stiff with salt and grime. The duffel bag sat untouched beside him. His hands rested on his knees, palms up, empty. He had watched the night pass in silence, counting the minutes by the changing light on the reflecting pool. His phone buzzed again. He did not look at it. He did not need to. He knew what it would say. The third tranche had done its work. Thorne was in a federal holding cell. Vance was in a separate holding cell. The defense contractors were scrambling, burning documents, deleting emails, calling their lawyers. The Pentagon was in lockdown. The Joint Chiefs were holding emergency sessions. The White House was issuing statements that said nothing and meant everything. Americus had won. He stood up slowly. His joints ached. His muscles protested. He was 52 years old, and he had just spent 11 years preparing for a single night. The adrenaline was gone. The exhaustion was total. He picked up the duffel bag and walked down the steps. The mall was empty. The grass was wet. The cherry trees along the tidal basin drooped under the weight of the rain. Americus walked toward the World War II Memorial, then turned south, toward the river. He did not know where he was going. He had no plan. He had no destination. He just walked. He reached the Potomac and stood at the railing. The water was gray, choppy, restless. A barge moved slowly downstream. A flock of geese drifted near the shore. Americus watched them for a long time. A car pulled up behind him. He heard the engine idle, the door open, the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. He did not turn. General Webb. The voice was familiar. It was Reyes. Americus turned. The FBI agent stood 10 feet away, his hands in his jacket pockets, his face unreadable. He was alone. No backup. No black suits. Just Reyes in a rumpled suit, his tie loose, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Agent Reyes, Americus said. I thought I was free to go. You are Reyes said. I am not here to arrest you. I am here to give you a message. Americus waited. The director wants to meet with you. He wants to offer you a deal. Full reinstatement. Full pardon. Your rank restored. Your clearance restored. Your son's record expunged. All of it. If you agree to stop releasing data. Marcus looked back at the river. Why would I do that? Because you are retired, Reyes said. I can see it in your face. You have been fighting for 11 years. You have nothing left to prove. You have already won. Thorne is in custody. Vance is in custody. The families of Ballot have their justice. The American people have their truth. What else do you want? Marcus was silent for a long moment. The geese drifted. The barge moved. The water churned. I want my son back, Marcus said. But I cannot have that. So I will take the next best thing. I will make sure that no other father loses his son to the same corruption. I will make sure that no other general is betrayed by the men he trusted. I will make sure that this never happens again. Reyes stepped closer. And how will you do that, General? By releasing more data, by exposing more secrets. There is no end to that road. There is only more enemies, more chaos, more destruction. You have won the battle. You cannot win the war. Not alone. Marcus turned to face him. His eyes were hard, but not cold. They were tired. They were old. They were the eyes of a man who had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. I am not alone, Marcus said. I have Delgado. I have Chen. I have Park. I have men and women who believe in what I am doing. I have the truth. That is enough. Reyes shook his head. The truth is not a weapon, General. It is a burden. You have ride it for 11 years. You have paid the price. Let someone else carry it now. Let the justice system do its work. Let the courts decide. Let the people decide. You have done enough. Marcus studied him. The agent was not lying. He was not manipulating. He was speaking from a place of genuine concern. Marcus could see it in his posture, his tone, his tired eyes. Reyes was not an enemy. He was a man trying to do the right thing. Marcus extended his hand. Reyes took it. Tell the director I appreciate the offer, Marcus said. But I decline. The data will keep coming. The truth will keep coming. I am not finished. Reyes released his hand. He nodded slowly, his expression resigned. I was afraid you would say that. Good luck, General. You are going to need it. He turned and walked back to his car. The door closed. The engine revved. The car pulled away and disappeared around a bend in the road. Marcus was alone again. He looked at the river. The sun was rising over the city, casting long shadows across the water. The gray was giving way to gold. The geese took flight, their wings beating against the morning air. He picked up the duffel bag and walked to a bench near the water's edge. He sat down and opened the bag. Inside were the clothes Delgado had packed. A black tactical shirt. A pair of cargo pants. A jacket. A phone. A weapon. Cash. He changed out of his dress blues. The fabric was heavy with rain and He folded them carefully and placed them in the bag. He put on the tactical shirt and pants. The jacket. He tucked the weapon into his waistband. He pocketed the phone. He stood up and looked at himself. He was no longer General Marcus Webb, Forestier commander, decorated hero, disgraced officer. He was just a man in black tactical gear, standing by the river, watching the sun rise. The phone buzzed. He pulled it out. A text from Delgado. Third tranche has gone viral. Thorne is singing. Vance is regaining. The Pentagon is asking for your help. They want you to lead the investigation. They want you to clean up the mess you exposed. Marcus read the message. He typed a reply. No. He pocketed the phone. He picked up the duffel bag. He walked away from the river, away from the memorial, away from the city. He walked without direction, without destination, without purpose. He just walked that the sun rose higher. The city woke up. The traffic began. The people emerged. Webb walked among them, unnoticed, unremarkable, a man in black tactical hayar with a duffel bag over his shoulder. He had won. He had lost. He had done what he set out to do. The rest was silenced that the phone buzzed one last time. He did not answer it. He did not look at it. He just walked. And the city swallowed him whole. The rain returned that evening. Webb had walked 17 miles. His feet were blistered. His shoulders ached from the duffel bag. He had crossed the Potomac into Virginia, then cut south through Arlington, past the cemetery where his father was buried, past the row houses where his mother had raised him, past the high school where he had met his wife. He stopped at a bus shelter on a quiet street. The shelter was empty, its glass walls smea red with grime. He sat down on the bench and set the duffel bag at his feet. The rain pattered against the roof. The streetlights flickered to life. He pulled out the phone. The screen was cracked from the pressure of the bag. He had not looked at it since the morning. Now he turned it on. 47 missed calls. 214 text messages. He scrolled through them without reading. Delgado. Chen. Park, unknown numbers. News outlets. Government agencies. His wife. His daughter. His son. He stopped at Caleb's message. It was short. 3 words. I am sorry. Sta read at the screen. He did not reply. He could not. The words were too small, too inadequate, too late. He had lost his son. He had lost his career. He had lost his name. He had gained nothing but the truth, and the truth was a cold comfort in the rain. He pocketed the phone. He picked up the bag. He walked out of the shelter and into the storm. The street led to a bridge. The bridge crossed a narrow creek. Stopped at the center and looked down. The water was fast-moving, swollen with runoff. He watched it for a long time. He thought about the families of Ballad. He thought about the 43 civilians who had died in the strike. He thought about their children, their parents, their futures erased in a single moment of violence. He had avenged them. He had exposed the men who had buried their memory. But he had not brought them back. He thought about his son. He thought about the boy he had raised, the man he had trained, the traitor he had exposed on a cathedral stage. He had done what he had to do. But the cost was higher than he had imagined. He reached into his jacket. His hand closed around the weapon Delgado had packed. He pulled it out. The metal was cold and heavy in his palm. He stood on the bridge, the rain soaking his face, his hand gripping the weapon, his eyes fixed on the water below. Then he put the weapon back. He turned and walked off the bridge. He did not know where he was going. He did not have a plan. He did not have a destination. He just walked.